rescue fantasy. They think they can fix them.
I'm worried for Cecily, so I Googled any new stuff on sociopathic personalities. Apparently, the talking cure actually helps them become better criminals. It was fascinating. The study was by Yoshelson and Zabinow.
Studies are turned around every few years.
This other, I think it was Robert Hare, suggested that sociopaths actually quite glibly engage on key issues like mother, family.
I seem to remember that from residency.
Me too, and I've read Hare, but who's a true sociopath?
I had a guy at the state asylum, snow poisoner. They even mimic empathy. They blubber and cry.
Did you put her up to this? She just happened to mention this study?
So, I guess this is a potentially not good post, but whatever. I don't not identify as a criminal. I was about to say I don't identify as a criminal. I don't not identify as a criminal. I do have a criminal history. I try to rationalize it by exploring the potential underlying motivational factors, absentee father, serious physical abuse in childhood, there's the other level to child abuse is the concealment, which is fundamentally the rejection of it, so that that is I identify as a form of child abuse. I'm sure it probably is. I don't know, I've researched, but I've gone to therapists a couple times. Like when I was in one particular time that stands out to me was I was in a juvenile prison facility in Nellis for a parole violation from a previous incarceration in a juvenile. I don't know if I said Jewish. I hope I didn't say Jewish. Talk about anti-Semitic. In a juvenile prison facility in California. The first time I was arrested, got probation for a year, and then right around a year later, I absconded from my probation. I ran away from home. I was 14 years old. I was runaway for something like 2 months, maybe a little bit longer than 2 months. And then I was arrested for 211 second degree, which is an armed robbery, effectively a carjacking, using the equivalent of a firearm to place it in the face of a woman, ordering her, me holding the weapon, my friend, my co-conspirator, I don't want to say friend, that's stupid, taking the stuff and then getting in the car, me getting in the passenger seat, and then we getting like 2 blocks away and not realizing the parking brake was on and crashing into the curb, fucking up the front axle and having to abandon the car and run on foot. And then ultimately getting caught from a manhunt that included the police helicopter. And just like 4 blocks away from that. That got me a 6-year sentence in the youth prison or juvenile prison in California, the California Youth Authority, but it's not the same as adult prison. So the 6-year sentence, I ended up serving 21 months in juvenile facilities. Then I was out for 2 days or 3 days short of a year, and I was captured. Even before I was captured, I had also absconded again, and I was on the run for, I don't remember the time period at that, something. Maybe it's like I don't know if it's weeks or months, but at the most it was 3 months, and at the least it was 3 weeks. That's the best I could do for that. And then I was violated and sent to this other facility, and there, part of the violation, now the kicker was, my parole officer, at this time I was 17, the parole officer at my time, he was mad because I made him look stupid in one sense by the way that I manipulated the system. And ultimately what gave him the ace up his sleeve was that I got into journalism in my high school, Poly, and I was there for 2 semesters and 3 weeks of one. So I got out of jail. I enrolled in school for the last 3 weeks or 4. It's like 3 weeks of a semester. They told me to wait, but I had heard all the studies about, if you don't get into school, you violate. So I got into school. And they said, you're not going to pass any classes, you won't get any credit. I was like, I don't care. I just want to be in school. So that way I got something to do. I don't have a free time. And I get into school, 3 weeks in journalism. The next semester, they make me the editor-in-chief. That's a class and teacher decision. So I was an editor-in-chief for 2 semesters. The first semester, I partnered up with a girl named Gloria Gutierrez, maybe? I don't know. But we did some articles about teen pregnancy, tagging, teen incarceration. Nobody knew, none of the students knew. I kept that very much on the down low. All my teachers had to be notified about my status as a parolee in their classes. That might have been one of the things that contributed to the teacher advocating for me to become the editor-in-chief in the newspaper, because of the work that I did in the 3 weeks that I was there at the end of the last semester. Probably gave her an incentive to be like, hey, if I push this kid further, he might do more. And I mean, I did, but ultimately that pit me against a teacher that was abusing. It was a female teacher that was she never touched any of them, but just was aggressively abusing, viciously abusing the cheerleaders. And me with my partner, Gloria Reyes, we started interviewing the cheerleaders, and I was compiling my story. And after I got a whole compilation, this teacher was my teacher in the first enrollment, the 3 weeks, and the second, I got a D in her class, which was a passing grade, which still got me the credits in the 3 weeks because of just my participation in her American literature class. And then the next semester, I was so far ahead, I was the only person in her class that didn't have to take the final exam because I blew the class out the water. So there was nothing to do. So then now we're back to the second full semester, which by that time they put me in the end of 10th grade for the last 3 weeks. Then I started 11th grade. And then after that, they finally got my credits computed from jail, and they realized I didn't have enough credits to be in that. So they put me in the second half at 9th grade when I was 17. At that point, I was like, fuck school. I don't give a fuck. But the only class I cared about was journalism. So this teacher, Miss Bryson, actually, who went during the time when the classes were taking the final, and I had to go to school. There was it wasn't about have to go to school. I was participating in school anyways. But I remember, I forgot what it was exactly, but through a series of some kind of messing around, I was like, oh, sat in her seat because she was up doing something, and like, oh, I'll be the teacher. And she sat on my lap when she got back in front of the class, but like in a joking way. But I remember that experience very much. I was thinking my brain was storming, and so are other parts of my body. But then comes the next semester, and I'm doing this thing with the things, and I go to interview her, and she tells me, I want to ask you some questions, Ms. Bryson, about the cheerleading squad. She's like, Timothy, you don't want to do this. I was like, I'm just getting information. You don't want to do this. So she ended up digging into my school participation and realizing that I was ditching every other class except for my journalism. And then because she was my teacher previously, she knew about me being on parole. So she contacted the parole officer and reported me. And then I found out that I was wanted for a parole violation somehow, and then I absconded, and I was up for like 4 months or something like that. I was on the run. I think it was more like 4 months. And then they catch me, but when they catch me, the parole officer wants to make me suffer. He tells me straight up, initially he said, I'm not going to violate you. He told me basically, I think you're a piece of shit and I want to fuck you up, but since I can't fuck you up, the best way I'm going to fuck your life over forever is I'm going to send you to county. So I'm going to let you just keep fucking up your life, and then when you turn 18, I'm going to get you and throw you to county. So through an unfortunate series of events to him, I got arrested like a month and a half before I turned 18. So he couldn't send me to county. He sent me to juvenile hall. But what he did is he manipulated the records and ended up illegally sending me to adult youth authority CYA facility in Chino, YTS, where everybody was over 18 except for me, which put me in a confinement because of insurance liability and stuff like that. Because if anybody would have fucking touched me, it would have been a big issue of a minor. What the fuck was a minor doing there? So when I got to my parole hearing and all of this kind of came out, the initial push was for a year violation, but then because of his course of action and the fact that they were having a parole hearing for a 17-year-old in an adult facility, they extended an act of generosity that gave me the option to participate in a 4-month program. I was already been locked up for 2 months. In a 4-month program that was a boot camp program that if you don't pass, if you get kicked out of the program, then you do a year from the point that you get kicked out. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. But this was a very, this was a, what do you call it, like an experimental program called the LEAD program, LEAD, and leadership, something, I don't know what it was, but leadership, I don't know. So I got into there, but another class that I had when I was in the high school, my first semester was ROTC, Air Force, so I had got basic military training in the most basic sense. So when I get to this boot camp program, and it's a bunch of cholos and crips and bloods and a couple Asian gang members and some white kids that identify with white supremacy now, because that's the nature of the game in California. And so we get off the bus. I'm the only person that can do anything. So that was whatever. Anyways, the point of the matter is, in that program, because it's so intense, you're working, you're getting up at 5:30 in the morning, you're running a mile every morning, and on every Sunday you run 5 miles with the group in the morning before breakfast. And then you have all kinds of PT exercises, you have classes, you have courses, like victimization courses, anger management courses, and then you have to make your bed specific ways. You have to dress in a specific, not necessarily military uniform, but you have to dress in a specific uniform that's distinct, and you also have to dress in a specific manner that meets the criteria. And there's 4 different groups going through it. But anyways, because it's that intense, they have a therapist, a psychiatrist on site, and it was Dr. Teasdale, and I engaged with him, and I'm like 18. my engagements with him were very, very mutual. I don't know if that makes any sense. I never felt like he felt like he was providing me therapy. I don't know, maybe that's the art of the profession, and he was at a certain level of expertise to create that environment, a relationship, which is an environment. But just based on my recollection, I always got the impression that even though I shared stuff with them, because I felt like I didn't see, I saw him as a therapist, but at the same time too, I saw it as, well, this is a venue in which I can be honest and open, and therefore I think my ability to be honest and open ended up creating in his mind a sort of experience where he was talking to somebody on a mutual basis, not wholly therapeutic. I did also try, I was homeless for 5 years, and from 2000 to 2015, and during that time, any time that I accessed assistance from any kind of shelter type program, I always, something I learned from my grandfather, who was a major influence in my life, is, don't be a taker. If you're gonna take, always give. So anytime I did, I'd always volunteer, and that ended up putting me in a position where I was effectively employed while I was homeless, getting paid. I don't have a problem with this. I was fine with this, so I don't hold this against them in any way, shape, or form. But the Hope of the Valley homeless shelter, which is the biggest homeless shelter in the valley, I was running their breakfast food program. Well, not necessarily cook. I was just managing the whole thing, which because of my, well, you could argue because of my management. Maybe it's because of the increase of homelessness. Who knows? But during the time that I was there, it dramatically increased from a pretty much between 30 to 60 people to doubling, between 60 to 100 and plus people coming in on a routine basis. And for 8 months, I was doing that Monday through Friday, 7:30 in the morning to 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the day, in the end of the day. And they also had offered therapy there, and I felt they called me a client volunteer, and I felt like it was kind of like another contribution that I could make was participating in the program in order to set an example for people, other clients, as they call them, that, hey, maybe Tim's, I'm a manipulative motherfucker. That's how I see it. I don't know. Whether good, bad, you call her whatever the fuck you want. But I dealt with this lady who was she wasn't even a therapist. She was some kind of listener or something like that. But what I noticed, it was different then. I had expectations. And it transformed the therapeutic environment into a inquisition in one sense. Like, why am I talking to you if the only thing you have to offer me is a blank void of a participation? That's it. There was nothing. There was no substance in any way, shape, or form to her function in that interaction. And I found that meeting with her agitated a part of me, an ego, my ego, that was like, how the fuck can this uneducated, homeless dipshit that literally doesn't know anything. I had read books, but that doesn't, just because you read a book doesn't mean you know anything. That's a fair assumption, right? So, and I hold to that, but it was still like, but I felt like I had learned stuff, and I'm like, she said no, like, this lady couldn't even. Again, this is the arrogance. This is how I was going into this whole thing. Was like, wait, you don't even know the difference? But she didn't even know Carl Jung. Put it like that. First off, boom. I didn't even think that was possible. I think you got to go in the lowest fucking slums of the ghetto to find somebody that doesn't know Carl Jung. And that's even a stupid comment, because I don't even think that they won't know him there. But if there's a place that they don't know him, that's where you got to go. This lady didn't even know Carl Jung. So let alone the difference between Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. And then I also know others like Wilhelm Reich. So that was just like, and I read Friedrich Nietzsche and Joseph Campbell. So it was really freaking frustrating. And I've thought since, because I've put my life in a situation, I in a Carl Jung sense, there's a hermit. He's not an archetype. And officially, there's 14 archetypes. I don't know them off the top of my head, but out of the 14, the old man might be the closest thing to the hermit, the wise old man. But the hermit, I identify the hermit more as a Diogenes figure from Greece, who was this guy that wobbled in the dirt, slept with the dogs, jacked off in public, defecated and feces at will wherever he wanted, and was just freaking asshole to everybody. The cynic, Diogenes the cynic. So that's how I identify the hermit archetype personally, and decided that that's what I wanted to mold my life upon. I didn't want to be the hero. I didn't want to be the lover. I didn't want to be the father. I didn't want to be the maternal, because the male figure can still extend a type of maternal concern, a type of maternal quality, which is nurturing and listening and embracive, not embracive. That sounded like abrasive. Embracive, not abrasive. So the hermit, and I've succeeded. I have, outside of any type of work environment, I have zero social interactions. The apartment that I live in right now, I've lived here for going on 5 years. I've had 2 guests over the whole time. And since my roommate left in January 2022, I haven't had any guests come into my place. I don't use my phone for social calls. I don't have text messages, emails, no communication with family. So I have, because of all the shit that I've read, I could understand that the role that the environment can play on the role that can is more, it doesn't have to, but the role that the environment can play on shaping behavior and responses. Like, I can become used to being by myself to the point where in a social engagement, I can potentially act awkwardly and not be coherent of other people's social cues, which would create tension and a sense of disregard for them and their individuality, because I'm just all about me in my world or in my environment. Yeah, same thing. So I have pondered experimenting with therapy, but my concern has been that I will enter it with this high-minded arrogance that isn't going in there to share anything of personal relevance, but is more going in there as a litmus test to pit my sense of intelligence against a doctored or degreed individual's thing, which is something I do with lawyers. Like, I don't like lawyers, and I know the law a lot. So I can destroy any lawyer. I literally can destroy any lawyer. It doesn't matter what lawyer you got. I can destroy them all using their own system, using their own structures and quotes and shit like that. I mean, at the best, the primary difference between me and modern day lawyers is that modern day lawyers, they're, because of the structure of their environment, the courtroom, they become hyper obsessed with cases, particular cases, in order to validate their opinions. I don't fucking worry about the cases because all of the cases are based on principles. So who gives a fuck about the case if you understand the principle? Because the case can go either way. And knowing the fact that a case can go either way, but it's still based on a principle, that gives you insight into the full dynamic, the full symmetry, the antithesis and thesis of the principle, so that I can develop a synthesized total awareness of it. And therefore, if I engage with a lawyer who thinks that their case citations have some kind of relevance, I could brush any case aside because I know the fucking principles in a very spherical way of understanding. And I think that I also think that way in terms of psychology, psychoanalysis, psychology, and that stuff. So, as much as I would like to experiment with engaging with a modern day psychiatrist or psychoanalyst, at the same time too, I couldn't do it because, I'm sorry, it's a fucked up notion. The fact that they have this sounds contradictory to, because Carl Jung made his living off of this shit too, and Joseph Campbell says, don't get out of the system, but this is the hermit mentality. You're financially incentivized to moderate the totality of the body of work that is contained in psychoanalysis, so that you can remain marketable, because your goal is to have a clientele. And the way you maintain your clientele is you guide them at a slow enough pace that allows them to feel like their efforts within the system that is causing them the internal conflict in the fucking first place is enough to give them a sense of potential well-being that basically gets reduced down to indifference. Because if it was awareness, it's like this. If somebody's, this is gonna be brutal, but if somebody's raping you every week, like you're going someplace and every time you go there, this person's raping you, but you don't understand that you don't have to go there, and second of all, that you don't have to let them live. You can kill them. can is a stretch. The next level up is should. That's what I mean. So if you're providing a type of psychotherapy that teaches the person that's in that system that the height of awareness is to be like, I just don't have to go there. That to me is not psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis is reconciling the guilt complex that prevents the victim from doing like a Luigi thing and killing the perpetrator. Like, the 65 women that Bill Cosby raped, none of them, they're all millionaires. And they all know each other now too. They still haven't got their money together and hired a hitman to kill him. I don't know if he's dead now, but even the whole time. Or the Harvey Weinstein, same thing. No one ever hired a hitman to kill him. Or tried to kill him. So Donald Trump, same thing. None of the women, imagine if one of the women would have been caught as one of the attempted assassins of Donald Trump. Now that's what I'm fucking talking about. That's what my version of psychotherapy is. And I can't engage, and I guess that makes me a criminal. I don't not identify as a criminal because I do completely 100% advocate and support the murder of Donald Trump. Flat out, straight up. Fuck the Secret Service, fuck the CIA, and fuck the FBI, and fuck the Fraternal Order of Police, and fuck the Bar Association. Because they all put him in fucking power because they are like him. They don't just like him, they are like him. He's an extension of them. They're not an extension of him. He's their shadow. They are it. So, I would love therapy.